Welcome to the Healing Chamber Podcast. I'm Layla Rose. So today we'll be discussing about how being a queen is your birthright and what it means to embody our own queen energy. So the queen energy is actually interesting because it's the second phase of a woman's life. So the first phase is the maiden, so the teenager phase. You have the positive aspect, and then you have the shadow aspect of the maiden. So today we'll be really focusing on the queen phase, which is the second one. Again, we have the positive aspects of the queen, and then we have the shadow aspect of the queen. And then the third phase, which we're not going to be discussing this phase, but still we have to know it's the crone phase. So usually the phase when women are in their 50s and up, but it really depends. There isn't, obviously there isn't a playbook for that. Actually, most women usually stay within the first phase, the maiden, and the shadow aspect. So when we look at the collective, that's where usually most feminine women are. So now the second phase that we're going to be talking about today, the queen phase, is also called the mother phase or the high priestess phase as well. These are all different words for it. And it's basically a phase where a woman becomes a creatrix. So she starts to create her own life. She starts to embody this sovereignty, this divine sovereignty, but she also creates either a business, a child, anything that basically requires you to use your intuition and then take action and to birth that thing. So yes, it can be a human, it can be a child, or it can be a business as well, or it can be both, even being a mother of, a fur baby also counts, by the way. It's all different synonyms, by the way, to talk about that specific phase. And so it's a beautiful phase to be in because that's when feminine women really get to use their psychic abilities. Most of the times it's subconscious, but a lot of times it's intentional as well. When you get into a meditation, or you start to get these nudges of inspiration and impulses of creativity, those are all different ways of basically creating something that is first in the quantum spiritual realm, and then you're bringing it to the physical realm. So a lot of times women start to have dreams, right? That's how we know that something is aligned with our heart, is we start to have these glimpses of the future, or we just have this inner calling of doing something, starting a specific business, for example. The reason why this is your birthright is because being a queen means to embody your personal power. And so a lot of times when we look back into history, whenever, for example, ancient Egypt, that's the period of time that I love to go back in, right, when I do my meditations, because I used to be a queen in that specific timeline, and not just, like energetically, like I was, I had the title. And so what I noticed is that when you start to embody your feminine power, it obviously comes with duality. So a lot of women are being initiated into their queenhood, I would call it, and they don't even know it. And that was actually my story as well, in this specific lifetime, where every time I would start to create something, I would have people tell me not to do it. That's a common thing that can happen when you start to embody your home frequency, because anyone who's not chasing their dream, not embodying their divine sovereignty, they vibrate at a lower frequency than you. And I'm not saying like in a superior way, like you're better than them. That's not the point. I'm talking about frequencies. Like if someone is vibrating in the frequency of fear and shame and guilt, right? they're at a very low vibrational state. And so if you're trying to go up and you're trying to, get back to love and really, because that's the thing, when you embody your authentic self, you embody love. The natural event that's going to happen is you're going to have people trying to bring it down. And in my instance, it was loved ones and friends, but it can be strangers, it can be anyone. Like, it's a duality event that's going to happen. And so what I noticed the best thing to do when you're in this type of situation is to really build in silence up until the point where things are really anchored. That's something that's really important. And also, we're going to be discussing as well the positive and negative aspects of the queen, because, for example, when we look at celebrities, I feel like that's a good example. Not all celebrities, but I feel like a lot of celebrities embody the shadow aspect of the queen, because obviously, for example, if you take an artist or a singer, right, they create music, so they're in this creatrix energy, so the queen energy. But also the shadow aspect would be if a woman, a celebrity, is obsessed with their social status, if they're obsessed with having fans and they're really self-centered, they're not focused on building a community, they're not focused on their heart space, they're really focused on the physical appearance only, like what things look like, not what they feel like, or at least a balance of both. That's the shadow aspect of the queen. And usually, and I feel like a lot of stories are coming out, especially since 2020, about these really toxic environments of celebrities specifically, because I'm talking about women today because we're talking about the queen, but obviously men can also have this type of energy as well as kings. But when a woman embodies this type of energy, obviously the working environment around her is going to become extremely toxic. People are going to feel in competition with others. They're going to be in fear because they don't want to lose their job. They're not going to be paid well. They're going to be treated like servants. And so, yeah, that's the dark shadow aspect, I would say, of the queen, is when the queen, the queen gets what she wants to get and F everybody. Like, that's obviously the negative aspect of it, because usually what a woman has to do when she has that type of power is she has to bring harmony to the collective. And what's really interesting, when I do these past life regressions in ancient Egypt, when I was a queen, obviously I'm not saying all the queens back then, were all embodying this divine frequency, but for the most part they were, because to become a queen, to have the title, you had to go through a series of initiation and you had to be pure. And I'm not talking about the sexual purity thing of today. Like, I'm talking about, like, her intentions had to be pure. She had to go through a lot of different rituals and initiations to make sure, basically, that she would take the best decisions possible for the collective. It's a huge responsibility to be a queen. There's a lot that comes with it, and a queen has to take some very difficult decisions. If her husband passes away, she has to take over the kingdom. She has to lead the army. That's the thing. Like, and I remember when I did all my past life regressions, I would find myself in these meetings with the pharaoh and the warlords and the the general soldiers. I don't know if those are the specific titles they had, but when they were planning a war. And that's what I also talk about in my book, is that I had to be at those meetings because in case my husband would pass away, I would have to be the leader. So when you're a divine queen, it's not just your own personal needs that have to be fulfilled, because obviously, yes, you do have to come first, because if you're sick and if you're unhappy and depleted and frustrated and just physically drained, and you don't have energy, then you're not going to be able to lead your queendom. You're not going to be able to lead people. You're not going to be able to be a good mother, wife, friend. You're just going to be this like shell of yourself. So yes, you do have to pour into yourself first. But then when we see the difference between the shadow queen and the light queen, is that the shadow queen is only focused on her needs. She doesn't give a shit about her assistant's need, her whatever, staff that are working for her. They don't care about, she doesn't care about their needs, right? She just want her needs met. So she's going to give them a very low wage, and she's going to ask the most, right? She's going to make them work overtime and deplete them, because she's not even going to realize what's happening, basically. And obviously this builds a lot of resentment. And right now what's happening in the collective is everything is being revealed. That's why we see all these lawsuits and people being exposed. That's what it means. We're going through a collective spiritual awakening, so people are aware of that. And if it's, everybody can change, obviously, but for a woman to go from that dark queen to go to the light queen, she has to humble herself. She needs to ask for forgiveness. She needs to ask for forgiveness for herself as well, because obviously she went through a series of events that made her this way. Maybe her mother was like that, and she's repeating the cycle. So obviously she has to break the cycle. And obviously I'm not saying like if you're working with someone who's like that to stay there, and no, like obviously everybody needs boundaries. No one should be treated like that. And that's something that I remember in my kingdom. Like everybody was living a good quality of life. No one was struggling to get food on their table for their family. Everyone was paid extremely well and was valued, especially if they were artists and creators, or if they were working in the temple as staff. It was actually a very sacred position. It was a sacred title. So yes, everybody was treated extremely well. People were allowed to have opinions and to state if something is not working. You're still allowed to your opinion. But that's the thing, the king also had the last word. And that's why, to be a king, you also needed to embody that Christ consciousness and being connected with source and your heart, because you want to make sure that the person who has the last word on making sometimes a really hard decision has the collective in mind, has the planet in mind, right? And obviously life isn't perfect. Sometimes those decisions would be great for a certain group of people, and for others it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the best for them. But still, the priority was always to keep the kingdom safe and protected, and make sure that everybody goes to bed every night without worrying if we're going to be invaded, and obviously to make sure that we had that, the king had to make those really hard decisions. And myself, or queens in general, had to make decisions when it comes to women and the whole, birthing centers, to make sure that these places where women give birth are really optimal. And again, it would be some really hard decisions, but for the most part, the end goal was always harmony. It wasn't like, well, let's get the most money out of this, because that's unfortunately what we've been experiencing in the past thousands of years, where it's been profits over people. And what's happening right now, especially with the is it the Pluto in retrograde? I think, yeah, that's what it is. It creates a lot of rebellion. People are tired of this. And it's creating this collective awakening and anger and rage, where people are just tired of these leaders that are so focused on getting more and more money, and they completely gaslight people about the fact that they care about them. And yeah, people are tired, and we're shifting into this new timeline. So that's why it's been chaotic, and that's why we're going through basically a destruction, not like a physical destruction of society, but a mental, emotional destruction of society. So that's how this structure is changing. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.